52 wins, 100 plus points, 13-game win streak, first playoff win since 2018, and the first time the Devils won a playoff series since 2012. And everything has now come to an official end for the 2022-2023 season as the Carolina Hurricanes ended the Devils in 5 games in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We have a lot to talk about in the final post-game recap episode for this season. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed him. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. So just like that, the historic season for the New Jersey Devils has come to a heartbreaking end. They dropped their final game of the year to the Carolina Hurricanes by a score of 3-2. The game went into overtime, and the Devils were on the penalty kill, and unfortunately, they lost it on a game-winning power play shot. And that is probably the most heartbreaking way to go out. And the Carolina Hurricanes were able to defeat the Devils in 5 games. The Devils didn't get the chance to perform in front of their fans at least one more time. But this season was still a great success for the New Jersey Devils, and they are light years ahead of where they were supposed to be initially. So going into the season, people were projecting for them to be a lottery team, and then they went on that 13-game win streak. They had a rough patch during the month of December and also early January. They were able to turn it around. Jack Hughes went to the All-Star game. We saw the surgence of Nico Hischier, Jesper Fast. The Devils became buyers at the trade deadline, got Timo Meier, got Curtis Lazar. They were just one game away from getting first place in the Metropolitan Division, but we know how the ending of Game 82 went, and then the Devils go to the playoffs. They get out of the first round by beating the New York Rangers in 7 games, and unfortunately, reaching the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, it just wasn't meant to be because, like I said, the Carolina Hurricanes handled the Devils with somewhat ease because defeating a team in 5 games, that's technically a gentleman's sweep, but still, we'll talk about that in a future episode about the overall recap of the New Jersey Devils this season. But before I give you guys my final post-game reaction for the 2022-2023 season, I want to thank you guys a million because you guys have helped me grow this show in more ways than one. Because when I first started Locked On Devils, I was literally doing these recordings in my basement, and I was also doing it in my college dorm. And then through time, effort, and once again, your guys' support, whether you are subscribed on YouTube or you're listening on a podcast streaming service, you've been able to launch Locked On Devils into the Apple charts, according to Chartable, and make it one of the most listened to hockey podcasts in the entire country. You guys helped me reach 1,000 subscribers, and we're continuing to grow in more ways than one. I had a deal with Audible in which Audible was a sponsor for the New Jersey Devils during the course of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they were endorsing Locked On Devils. And once again, I got to become a credentialed media member for the Devils, and I got to record episodes inside the Prudential Center and also Mullet Arena, and I got to interview dozens of NHL players, get awesome sound bites along the way, and it doesn't happen without your guys' support. So it sucks that the season ended the way it did for the Devils, but they should still be proud of the overall journey and the process it took, and they're way ahead of where they were initially supposed to be, like I just mentioned. And I just wanted to take the time to thank you guys for your support all season. Whether you love the show, whether you hate the show, why are you still listening if you hate it, or whatever the case might be, I love your guys' support, and I love doing this show from the bottom of my heart. Sometimes it can be a drag to record an episode at times, but at the end of the day, I love doing it. I love providing you guys content. I'm very passionate about it. I love the New Jersey Devils, and I love meeting the people that I've been able to interact with along the way. And once again, it's all thanks to you guys. So I don't mean to get all sappy. I didn't mean to turn it into like a 2-minute segment, but since the season is now officially over for the Devils. We are now in off-season territory. I just wanted to take the time to thank you guys for your support all season long, and I hope to give you guys some awesome content over the summer, especially with some silly season. I'll explain what silly season is at the end of the episode, but we still have a game to recap, and like I said, it's the final post-game recap for the 2022-2023 season. So where are we going to start? Well, like with every post-game recap, let's talk about some key players that caught my eye. Then in the second segment, I'll talk about what went wrong for the New Jersey Devils and also give you guys an update on Jack Hughes' injury, because if you notice Jack Hughes a lot less on the ice, it's because he was dealing with something. And we were kind of making those speculations pregame because Jack Hughes did not join the New Jersey Devils for line rushes, according to Ryan Novozinski. And then I'll give you guys my overall thoughts on the playoffs for the Devils and where I feel as though they kind of were lacking in some areas, because it's just so amazing that they waited until like the final game to give their best effort when they had other opportunities to do so. But like I said, we'll talk about that in segment 2. And like I do with every post-game recap, I'll compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade. So let's talk about some key players. Key player number 1. And a lot of you guys are going to be coming out my throat, and I am well prepared for it. So please just be kind in the comments section if you're watching on YouTube. Timo Meier. Now, like I said, a lot of you are probably going to be like, why are you choosing Timo Meier? Because he did kind of cost the Devils the game. And that may be true, but let's also not ignore the fact that Timo Meier is responsible for the 2 goals that the New Jersey Devils did score on. So the first goal, the Carolina Hurricanes had a missed coverage, and it resulted in the Devils going on a 3-on-2 advantage. And who was able to set up Mercer on an awesome saucer pass and able to just pass it to him on a dime? It was Timo Meier, and Timo Meier was able to extend his point streak to 3 games, because in game 3, he was able to score. In game 4, he got an assist, and now in game 5, he got an assist, and then later in the game, he got a goal. So in period number 2, he was able to get a power play goal. What was he doing? He was hanging in front of the net. Dougie Hamilton let a shot rip from the point, and Timo Meier once again cleaned up the garbage, and he was able to find the back of the net and give the Devils a 2-1 lead. And it was the second time that evening in which the Devils did have the lead. Unfortunately, they couldn't maintain it. Timo Meier had a 2-point performance, and he extended his point streak to 3 games. And like I said, during the course of the playoffs, Timo Meier, sometimes he's iffy amongst the fan base, because I, for one, loved his physicality in the first series against the New York Rangers. And then in this series, he was able to come alive on the offensive side of things. And I think that's what people were expecting from him. So Timo Meier has impressed me throughout the entirety of the playoffs, and the New Jersey Devils would be foolish not to re-sign him to a long-term deal. And given how Jesper Bratt performed during the course of the Stanley Cup playoffs, I think Timo Meier is a safe bet to be priority number 1 over Jesper Bratt. Now, star player number 2 that I want to acknowledge, Akira Schmid. Now, Akira Schmid, he should have started in game 4. No ands, ifs, or buts about it, because if I said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Vitek Vanecek, even though he was the only goalie to come away with the win in game 3, it was not a good performance. So Lindy Ruff really should have put Akira Schmid in for game 4, because in this game, Schmid saw 39 shots and he was able to save 36 of them. He made a lot of grade A saves, and he was the reason why the New Jersey Devils were able to have their such small lead, or why the game was tied. Because I'll tell you what, when I was watching it with my dad on the couch, there were a couple times where my heart was dropping. There were a couple times when we were both screaming at our TV, and I was like, no, that's going in, that's going in. Oh no, Akira made the save. He made the save. Akira Schmid above the call of duty throughout the entirety of the playoffs, and games 1 and 2 was not entirely on him. Yes, he was subbed out early in favor of Vitek Vanecek, but similar to what Lindy Ruff said, it was more of a matter of just trying to shift the momentum for the Devils. And unfortunately, some people will be quick to blame the goaltending in that sort of circumstance, but I don't think we can put the blame on Akira Schmid as to why the Devils lost game 1 and game 2, because he did his best. And like Amanda Stein tweeted out in game 1, the score would have been a whole lot worse if Akira Schmid was not in between the pipes. Now, my first star, and this might be a little cheating because I actually have 2 first stars, and that is John Marino and Luke Hughes. So I talked about Akira Schmid going above the call of duty. what more can we say about this defensive pairing of Hughes and Marino? It was a pairing that I didn't know that we needed, but it was a pairing that I wanted as the game continued to progress, because I tweeted out, I was like, is it me or is Luke Hughes logging a whole lot of minutes? Because John Marino saw 30 minutes and 36 seconds on the ice, whereas Luke Hughes, he saw 25 minutes and 2 seconds on the ice. For Luke Hughes, this is his 5th career NHL game, and this is his 3rd appearance in the playoffs, and this was by far his best showing because of what it meant and what he was asked to do. So we'll talk about him in a second, but for John Marino, lockdown defense. And remember what Damon Severson told me a couple days ago in the post-game soundbites? He said that the Devils had to match the intensity of the Carolina Hurricanes, and that's exactly what John Marino did. So John Marino, his minutes went up. He was playing great defense. His passing was excellent. And the dynamic between John Marino and Luke Hughes, that's a matchup, quite honestly, that intrigues me, because you got one defenseman who is a lockdown, stay-at-home defenseman, whereas the other one can play defense, but at the same time, offense is his bread and butter. So once again, I'll get to Luke Hughes momentarily, but to continue with John Marino, here's something else that just impressed me for John Marino. He was an absolute warrior, because late in the game, he took a puck to the face, and it looked really nasty on the television from what I was watching, because he was bleeding and there was also a scar, and he had to put gauze in between the nostrils. And but a few minutes goes by and both gauzes are just completely red. And at one point, when there was a pause in the action, the referees had to go over to him and be like, look, if you continue to do this, we might have to force you to come out the game. Because obviously it's sort of a hazard if he is bleeding to that great extent, because like I said, both gauzes were just soaking in blood red. And John Marino was like, no, I'm staying in. And the referees allowed it. And John Marino was just an absolute warrior out there. That was his best game of the season. We talked about John Marino early on in the season, and we sort of stopped talking about him as it progressed, but his impact was always there. He was always a rock on the defensive side of things. And the defensive-minded defenseman usually gets forgotten about, because in this day of the NHL, we're so focused on a defenseman just putting up big offensive numbers. So like take Erik Karlsson, for example. He puts up all those offensive numbers and he's great at defense, but at the same time, someone like Jonas Siegenthaler, someone like John Marino, and these like stay-at-home defensemen, these defensive-minded defensemen like we saw in the early days of the NHL, they need a lot more credit. And John Marino put on a show, and even if the stat sheet doesn't show it, his impact was greatly felt. And now for Luke Hughes, like I said, this is his 5th career NHL game, and this is the 3rd time we've seen him in the playoffs. And I know he was able to get 2 assists in his playoff debut, but I think this was his best showing because, once again, similar to John Marino, of what it meant. Because Luke Hughes, once again, he saw 25 minutes and 2 seconds on the ice. And I wish I can find a different word to describe him, because I've always seemed to just go to this adverb, but he was skating comfortably out there. He was so comfortable on the rink. It's just insane. And like I said, you would have never guessed that Luke Hughes has less than 10 games of experience at the NHL level. And he was making the right passes, and turnovers and passing was the main issue in the previous loss for the Devils. And Luke Hughes, who did not have a good showing in Game 4, similar to a lot of his teammates, Luke Hughes was able to just show everyone, like, look, I can play defense. And he proved a lot of people like me wrong, because one of the concerns I had for Luke Hughes is that he is great offensively, but his defense needs a lot of work. But I was completely wrong about Luke Hughes, and I'll be the first one to admit it. His defense impressed me, because once again, he's skating really well. He's in the right place at the right time. He's able to knock the puck away. He's keeping offensive possessions alive for the Devils. And I know in his playoff debut, like I mentioned, he got a couple points. He was able to get 2 assists. But this was the best showing for Luke Hughes. Excellent defense. And once again, he is an offensive-minded defenseman, so he was coming in on the rush for a few of those plays, because he had 4 shots on goal. And sometimes I had to do a double take. I'm like, wait, is that Curtis Lazard going in on the rush? Is that Lazard going deep into the offensive end? Or, oh, no, that says Hughes. Is that Jack? No, that's Luke Hughes. That's Luke Hughes. He should be at the point. What is he doing? Luke Hughes just knows how to skate. He knows how to create shots for himself. And he is just going to have a bright future in this league. And I can't wait because Luke Hughes, just 2 regular season games of experience, stepped up big time in the playoffs. And it's such a shame that it's going to get overlooked because the Devils came out on the losing end. But Luke Hughes was a huge X factor in this series for the Devils. And I know I critiqued a few people who said that Luke Hughes should not see the day of light during the course of the playoffs because I don't want to throw him into the fire. I don't want to throw him into the hungry wolf pack. But Luke Hughes just showed me that he is capable of doing it. And from the Frozen Four to the Stanley Cup playoffs second round, Luke Hughes stepped up big time, just like his brother. Now, there's more in store, and there's a whole lot to talk about. And I know the Devil season is over, but I'm sure you guys want some tickets to some great other events that might be taking place at the Prudential Center in the near future. So forget about planning in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat right before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, so before I talk about what went wrong in this game for the Devils, let's talk about Jack Hughes because, like I said in segment 1, according to Ryan Novozinski, Jack Hughes did not partake in the line rushes, and a lot of people were wondering, like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And then, according to Mike Moriel, Jack Hughes was on the ice with Mercer and Meyer and Severson as warmups were wrapping up, and he said that he looked perfectly fine. So a lot of people didn't think anything of it, but as the game progressed, how often did you see Jack Hughes? Because I'll tell you what, I barely saw Jack Hughes. I saw his brother Luke, but I didn't see Jack. Jack Hughes registered 14 minutes and 16 seconds of time on the ice, which I don't know what his season low is, but I think it's either that or rather close. So Jack Hughes barely played in this game. And during the course of overtime, I was like, where's Jack Hughes when you need him? Because he came in for like one shift, but it was only for like a minute or two. Then he immediately came off. And I was just wondering, like, did Jack Hughes get hurt? Because a lot of people were pointing to the fact because, as we all remember, that infamous play in which Jack Hughes was able to set up Timo Meier, which, by the way, we'll talk about in a few moments. But toward the end of that play in which Timo Meier was not able to get the open net opportunity, Jack Hughes fell on his head, and a lot of people were fearing that it was a possible head injury. So I remember talking to my dad, and my dad was like, do you think he's concussed or something like that? And I was just like, I don't think that's it, because if he's concussed or if he's showing signs of a concussion, I don't think the team doctors or trainers would allow for him to be on the bench. And I don't think they would allow for him to play in a game because concussions have been a big talk around ESPN as of late because of what happened in an NBA playoff game. And what some people have been saying is absolutely correct. Just one wrong hit to the head and it can affect the rest of your life. So I don't think they would allow Jack Hughes to go back onto the bench or even partake in the rest of the game if he was showing concussion-like symptoms. And then obviously once the game was over, people were asking Lindy Ruff, like, what's going on with Jack? Like, what's the overall circumstance? Why did he only register about 14 minutes of ice time? And according to Amanda Stein, here's what she tweeted out. She said, Lindy Ruff did not think that Jack Hughes was going to be able to play tonight. He's got an upper body injury. And to quote Lindy Ruff, he said, for him to put his skates on and play says a lot about his character. So Jack Hughes was dealing with something at the most inopportune time because once again, this is like a win or go home game. And Jack Hughes was basically like, look, I'm not sitting out for this game. I'm going to lace up the skates and I'm going to play. And once again, he was only able to register about 14 minutes of ice time. So it's impressive that Jack Hughes went out and play, and hopefully it's nothing serious. So I'm hoping for the best. But the fact that he was able to play through it somewhat gives me some positive reassurance. But the fact that Jack Hughes was willing to put his body on the line, and once again, he took a nasty tumble on one play that involved Timo Meier, and we all know that play that I'm referring to. And that looked really scary, quite honestly. Like, honestly, I'm surprised he didn't suffer some sort of neck injury if he hadn't done so already. So hopefully that did not aggravate it, because once again, his head did make contact with the sheet of ice first. And if he's already dealing with an upper body injury, I'm really hoping that didn't re-aggravate it. So Jack Hughes is a trooper, similar to John Marino. But now let's talk about what went wrong for the New Jersey Devils. Well, I think the name of the game for Devils is that they missed their opportunities, because they were leading the game not once but twice. And when they were up 2-1, Timo Meier had an open net opportunity set up by Jack Hughes, like I was referring to. And unfortunately, Timo Meier wasn't able to get it on in. Now, a lot of people are going to be blaming Timo Meier, saying it's on him why the New Jersey Devils weren't able to win. But I just want to put this out there, which is Timo Meier was responsible for both of the goals that the Devils scored in this game. And the Devils were already leading at that point. That would have been an insurance goal in period number 2. And not to mention, the Devils let Brent Burns score late in period number 2, literally when there was only like a few seconds remaining in period number 2. So why did the New Jersey Devils allow for a rebound opportunity for the Carolina Hurricanes? And they were able to pass it over to Burns, and Burns was able to score on Akira Schmid and tie the game and shift the momentum. That's a question that I have, which is like, okay, look, I know that Timo Meier play, it was definitely something that is going to haunt us, because that was a goal that could have put the Devils up by 2 goals, and that gives them some insurance and just somewhat of a cushion to work with. But let's not put all this blame on Timo Meier. And do I need to remind you that Andre Palat later on in the game also had an opportunity to try and score, and that ended up biting the Devils in the butt as well, because Andre Palat wasn't able to finish. So once again, like, I know that we're going to point the fingers at Timo Meier, and that image is going to instill in our head saying that is what killed our season. Well, no, but I don't feel comfortable saying that's what killed our season. I think the New Jersey Devils played one hell of a game. They played their best game of the series so far, because their season was on the line. So they stepped up in more ways than one. And I get that people are going to blame Timo Meier in that instance, but let's pump the brakes a little bit and let's do some reflecting, and let's just look at it from a different perspective, which is the Devils put themselves into that 3-1 hole. And it leads into my next discussion. Why does it take so long for the New Jersey Devils to get themselves going during the playoffs? Because it doesn't just refer to this series, but it refers to the previous series as well, because they put themselves in a 2-0 deficit not once, but twice during the course of the playoffs. And I said it in the first round, and I said it in this round, which is game 3 is pretty much a must win, and the Devils were able to win those games. But the question I have for the Devils is that you have the capability to make it a more competitive series. And what frustrates me is that the Devils were showing spurts of possibly like dominating the game, because if you guys recall, in game 4, they got off to the early lead, and they should be using that momentum going forward. So, and it just pisses me off that the New Jersey Devils, they waited till now to play their best game of the series, when you literally had a few opportunities to try to force it to 6 or force it to 7. Why do you put yourselves behind a 2-0 deficit? Why did you wait until game 3 to get yourselves going? Because if I said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Game 3s are essentially a must win if you are in a 2-0 deficit, because it's very rare for a team in any professional sport to overcome a 3-0 deficit. So game 3 is theoretically a must win. And when looking at game 5, why did it take you so long to basically match the intensity of the Carolina Hurricanes? Why did it take you so long to do this, do that? And it was a very competitive game, and the Devils were definitely able to keep themselves in it. But at the same time, why do you wait till the last minute to do so if you have that in your bag already? Because my message to the Devils and the coaching staff is that this is a team that's won 52 games. This is a team that was able to eclipse over 100 points. This is a team that was able to go on a 13-game win streak. So they know what it takes to win multiple games in a row. Why do you put yourselves into that pressurous situation? Because had you lost this game, or had you lost in this similar manner in game 1 or game 2 and game 4, that's a little more respectable and that's a little more bearable. And I don't think a lot of people will be clowning you for that. But the fact that you waited until the last possible second when everything was on the line to play your best game of the series is quite honestly unacceptable. And I know there's more metrics to it because, like I said in segment 1, Akira Schmidt should have started in game 4, or going back to that New York Rangers series, Jonas Siegenthaler should not have been a healthy scratch in game 2. I get that there's other metrics to it, but at the same time, like I said, this is a team that's won 52 games. This is a team that was able to eclipse over 100 points, and this is a team that went on a 13-game win streak. And you're telling me you have to wait until you're in a dire situation before you finally play your freaking game? So that's my little tangent, and that's what frustrated me when I was watching the game. I was like, where was this in game 1? Where was this in game 2? Where was this in game 4? You literally said you gave up and you stopped skating. Not my words. That's the words from your captain, Nico Hischier. So I'm proud that the Devils played well in this series, but it does not exonerate the fact that they could have played better throughout the entirety of the series and made it more respectable. I would have been okay if they got swept and they unfortunately just lost in this similar manner in all 4 games. But I said prior to this game, the Devils had not played well against the Carolina Hurricanes. And that's where I stand with this whole playoff outing for the Devils, which is I'm proud and I'm glad that they got out the first round and I'm glad that they got to this point, but you should not be waiting until the last possible second to finally play your game and show some signs of life. Okay, so like I do with every post-game recap, I'm going to compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade for the final time this season. So in this game for the Devils, they once again played their best game of the year. And there were times when I was a little nervous, like towards the end of period 1, the Carolina Hurricanes, they were going on that little bit of a momentum shift. They were searching for that final goal to close out the period. And similar to what Amanda Stein tweeted out, she said that was huge for the Devils because that was what shifted the momentum in game 4 when the Devils went up 1-0 and the Carolina Hurricanes were able to tie it. So there were a couple times where I was really nervous, but once again, the Devils were able to close out defensively, and Akira Schmidt was able to make a lot of grade A saves. So closing out period number 1 with the lead, that was crucial, and that was a huge turning point for them. And unfortunately, they allowed for Slavin to score early on in period number 2. Akira Schmidt, quite honestly, should have made that save. I think that's his only mistake of the night. Timo Meier was able to make it a 2-1 game, had a few opportunities to make it 3-1, but the Devils didn't capitalize. Then Brent Burns, the Devils can't be allowing those kind of opportunities. And then when looking at overtime, that's when the Devils made the big blunder that cost them their season. Because Tomas Tatar, and just bear with me, Tatar, you shouldn't have dropped it back for Siegenthaler. You should have passed it ahead, especially on the PK. And you forced Siegenthaler to toss over the glass. And unfortunately, I'm not saying Siegenthaler is innocent in all this, but I guess he made an instinct reaction. And as a result, they got a delay of game penalty. And the Devils went on the penalty kill. And that's what killed them. So once again, this game wasn't perfect for the Devils, but they were able to stop some of the run attempts that the Carolina Hurricanes were trying to throw at them. The Devils had an answer for almost everything. And period number 3, neither team was able to score. And I think that does speak volume for the Devils. And it goes to show you, like I've been saying throughout the course of the series, you've got to work with what you're being given. And unfortunately, the Devils missed those opportunities. So once again, Devils improved. They learned their lesson from game 4. They matched the intensity, and they were able to just prevent those dangerous shifts from the Carolina Hurricanes and Luke Hughes, John Marino, and also Michael McLeod. I got to give McLeod a shout out. Shout out to Mikey. He played really well in this game. they played like a bunch of workhorses out there. They were busting their behinds from end to end and playing every possession like it mattered most. And like what Nico Hischier told me post game after game 4, if you don't believe that we can win, then you should have stayed home in New Jersey. And Michael McLeod, John Marino, and Luke Hughes, they made the trip to North Carolina, obviously, and they came to work. And I was very proud of them. So those are sort of my wrap-up thoughts, because obviously in segment 2 it was a little unorthodox for me to just basically talk about mostly what went wrong for the Devils. But yeah, so like I said, it was a good game in general, and I wish the Devils would have done more of this throughout the course of the series, because I think they were capable of doing so, but just wasn't meant to be. And like I said, they were able to tightrope out of most situations, and whatever the Carolina Hurricanes threw at them, the Devils were able to respond rather quickly. So when looking at the stats, shots on goal, 39-29 in favor of the Carolina Hurricanes. So Kira Schmid did really awesome in between the pipes. Proud of them. Once again, face-off percentage, 60% to the Devils, 40% to the Carolina Hurricanes. Power plays, Devils were 1 for 1 thanks to Timo Meier. Hurricanes were 1 for 2, and that power play goal by Jesper Fast was unfortunately the dagger for the New Jersey Devils season. Hits 32 a pop, blocks 19-9 in favor of the Devils. Giveaways, Hurricanes led that department 15-11. So Devils cleaned up the puck somewhat, but obviously, in the words of Lindy Ruff, what constitutes a giveaway these days? But shout out to Luke Hughes, because he was able to lead the New Jersey Devils in the takeaway category with 2. So just to add to what was already a very good day for Luke Hughes, the rookie out of the University of Michigan. So if I had to give this game a letter grade for the Devils for the final game of the 2022-2023 season, I'm going to give the Devils a solid B, because they played really well. They played their game, but I docked them some points because they made some crucial mistakes that unfortunately was the result in the death of their season. And I'm also docking their points for, I guess, when a teacher knows you could do better, but you just don't put that effort in. That's why I also docked them, because I was like, where was this the rest of the series? And it's a legitimate question, because the Devils were showing spurts of it at times, but when things went wrong, they just put their heads down and they gave up. So yeah, to wrap up 2022-2023 season, get ready for some silly season, in which maybe I'll talk about some free agency signings or trade proposals I find online, whatever the case might be. So armchair GM season, or as I like to call it, silly season is among us, and I hope to give you guys some good content over the summer. I'll definitely be in contact with some of my associates like Ryan Novozinski, James Nichols, Christy Flannery, Dan Rice, Alex Chavancy, Alan Creda, all of them. So expect for them to appear on the show at least once during the course of the summer. But as for today's episode and as for today's season, thanks for everything, guys. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Once again, Trey Matthews signing off. 2022-2023 season officially in the books for the Devils.